Hey there, friends. Before we dive into this wild story, let me know in the comments where are you watching from today? Are you sitting on your couch at home, or maybe sneaking a peek at school? And here's a fun question to get you thinking, have you ever had a neighbor or someone bossy try to ruin your fun? Maybe they told you to stop riding your bike too fast, or they complained about your super cool treehouse. If you've got a story like that, type it in the comments below. I can't wait to read it. Oh, and if you love stories like this, where the underdog fights back and wins, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on more crazy tales. Alright, let's get started. Now, let me introduce you to a guy named Tom Jenkins. Just an ordinary guy, right? That's what everyone in his fancy neighborhood thought. Tom lived in a quiet little house on Maple Street, the kind of place where the grass is always green, the flowers are always perfect, and the mailboxes all match. It was like living in a picture book, everything neat, everything tidy, everything boring. But Tom? Oh, Tom wasn't like the others. He wasn't boring at all. He had a secret. A big one. A huge one. And no one, not his nosy neighbors, not the strict HOA president, had any idea what he was really up to. But don't worry, friends, I'll give you a little hint. Tom's secret was going to turn his whole neighborhood upside down. Let's talk about Tom's house for a minute. It wasn't the biggest house on Maple Street, and it wasn't the fanciest. The other houses had big, shiny cars in the driveways and huge windows that sparkled in the sun. Tom's house? It was small, with a little porch and a tiny front yard. But Tom loved it. He loved sitting on his porch in the evening, listening to the birds sing. And most of all, he loved his little fountain in the front yard. It wasn't much, just a small, bubbling thing that made a happy little sound, like a tiny stream giggling to itself. Tom would sit there and watch the water splash, and it made him smile. To him, that fountain was special. It was his. It was happy. It was home. But oh boy, did that fountain cause trouble. You see, Tom's neighborhood wasn't just any neighborhood. It was the kind of place where there were rules. Lots of rules. Rules about how tall your grass could be. Rules about what color your front door could be. Rules about what you could put in your yard. And all those rules were made by a group called the HOA. That stands for Homeowners Association, but really, it was just a bunch of grown ups who loved telling everyone else what to do. And guess what? They hated Tom's fountain. Hated it. They said it was against the rules. Too loud, too messy, too. Tom. Can you believe that? A tiny fountain, making a happy little sound, and they thought it was trouble. Now, let's meet the leader of the HOA. Her name was Karen Baxter, and oh boy, was she bossy. Karen was the kind of person who walked around with a clipboard all the time, writing down everything she didn't like. If your grass was 1 inch too tall, Karen wrote it down. If your mailbox was the wrong shade of blue, Karen wrote it down. And if you had a fountain in your yard? Oh, you'd better watch out, because Karen was coming for you. Karen had short, spiky hair and glasses that sat on the end of her nose, and her lips were always tight, like she'd just eaten a lemon. Her eyes. They were full of judgment, like she was looking for something, anything to complain about. And when she saw Tom's fountain, those eyes lit up. Trouble. 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 The first time Karen came to Tom's house, it was a sunny afternoon. Tom was sitting on his porch, sipping lemonade, watching his fountain bubble. He was happy, relaxed, not a care in the world. But then, he heard it clip, clop, clip, clop, the sound of Karen's fancy shoes marching up his walkway. Tom looked up, and there she was, clipboard in hand, her lips tight, her eyes glaring. Tom Jenkins, she said, her voice sharp like a teacher scolding a kid. What is this thing in your yard? Tom blinked, confused. You mean my fountain? He asked. Yes, your fountain. Karen snapped. It's against the rules. Too loud, too messy, too everything. Take it down, Tom. Take it down, or else. Tom just sat there, his lemonade halfway to his mouth, staring at her. Take it down? His fountain? His happy little fountain? No way. But Tom didn't argue. Not yet. He just smiled, a slow, quiet smile, and said, Okay, Karen. I'll think about it. Karen huffed, like a dragon puffing smoke, and scribbled something on her clipboard. You'd better do more than think, Tom, she said. You've got 1 week, or there will be consequences. And with that, she turned on her heel and marched away, clip, clop, leaving Tom alone on his porch. Now, here's the thing, friends. Most people, when someone bossy like Karen tells them to do something, might just give up. They might take down the fountain, say sorry, and try to fit in. But not Tom. Oh no, not Tom. See, everyone in the neighborhood thought Tom was just an ordinary guy. Quiet, simple, maybe even a little boring. They saw his small house, his old car, his plain clothes, and they thought, poor Tom. He doesn't belong here in our fancy neighborhood. He's nobody special. But they were wrong. So wrong. Because Tom wasn't just some guy with a fountain. He was a man with a plan. A big, bold, crazy plan. And Karen? She was about to wish she'd never knocked on his door. Let's take a step back for a second, friends, and talk about Tom. Who was he, really? Well, Tom was the kind of guy who liked to keep to himself. He didn't go to the big neighborhood parties where everyone bragged about their new cars or their fancy vacations. He didn't join the HOA meetings where Karen waved her clipboard around like a queen. He just stayed in his little house, minding his own business, enjoying his fountain. But here's the secret no one knew, Tom wasn't ordinary at all. Tom was smart. Really, really smart. Before he moved to Maple Street, Tom had been an engineer. Not just any engineer, a super smart one who built big things like bridges and dams and tunnels. Things that made people say, wow. But Tom didn't brag about it. He didn't tell anyone. He just wanted a quiet life, a happy life, with his little fountain. But now, with Karen banging on his door, Tom's quiet life was in trouble. And that's when something inside Tom woke up. It was like a little spark, deep down, that started to grow into a big, bright fire. Tom didn't want to fight with Karen. He didn't want to yell or argue. But he wasn't going to let her win, either. Oh no. Tom had an idea. A big idea. A wild idea. And it all started with that fountain. See, Tom thought to himself, if Karen thinks my fountain is trouble, just wait until she sees what I do next. And that, friends, was the moment everything changed. Here's a fun question for you, friends, put it in the comments below. What do you think Tom's big idea is? Is he going to build something even bigger than his fountain? Is he going to make Karen so mad she moves away? Or is he going to do something so amazing that everyone cheers for him? Let me know what you think, and stick around, because I promise, Tom's plan is going to blow your mind. Let's set the scene a little more, friends, so you can really picture it. Maple Street was the kind of place where everything looked perfect, but under the surface, things weren't so nice. The neighbors smiled at each other, but they whispered behind each other's backs. Did you see Mrs. Thompson's new car? Too flashy, they'd say. Did you hear Mr. Brown's dog barking last night? So annoying, they'd complain. And Tom? Oh, Tom was their favorite person to whisper about. Poor Tom, they'd say, shaking their heads. He doesn't fit in here. That fountain? What a mess. They didn't say it to his face, of course. They were too polite for that. But Tom knew. He saw the looks, heard the whispers, felt the judgment. And it made him sad, sure, but it also made him strong. Because Tom wasn't the kind of guy to let whispers stop him. He was the kind of guy to turn whispers into cheers. And Karen? Oh, Karen was the queen of whispers. She loved being in charge. She loved making rules. She loved telling people what to do. And most of all, she loved picking on people like Tom, people she thought were weak, people she thought she could boss around. But here's the thing about Karen, friends, she didn't know who she was messing with. She saw Tom's small house, his old car, his quiet ways, and she thought, easy target. But Tom wasn't weak. Tom wasn't scared. Tom was ready. And Karen? She was about to learn a big lesson. Now, let's talk about that fountain one more time, because it's important. To Tom, that fountain wasn't just a thing in his yard. It was a symbol. A symbol of happiness, of freedom, of being himself. When Tom moved to Maple Street, he didn't want to be like everyone else, with their perfect lawns and matching mailboxes. He wanted to be Tom. And that fountain? It was his way of saying, this is me. This is my home. And I'm not changing for anyone. But Karen didn't see it that way. To her, that fountain was a problem. A challenge. A battle. And Karen loved battles. She loved winning. But this time, friends, she picked the wrong battle. Because Tom wasn't just going to fight back. He was going to win. And he was going to win big. Here's one more thing to think about, friends, before we move on. Imagine you're Tom. Imagine you've got this little thing you love, maybe it's a toy, a drawing, a pet, and someone bossy comes along and says, get rid of it. What would you do? Would you give up? Would you cry? Or would you fight back, in your own special way? Tom chose to fight back, but not with yelling or arguing. Oh no. Tom fought back with brains, with ideas, with a plan so big, so bold, so amazing, that it would change everything. And that, friends, is why we're rooting for Tom. Because Tom is the underdog, the guy everyone thinks is weak, but who's really strong. The guy everyone thinks is ordinary, but who's really extraordinary. And the guy everyone thinks will lose, but who's going to win. So, friends, as we get ready to dive deeper into the story, remember this, things aren't always what they seem. The quiet guy in the small house? He might just be the smartest, strongest, bravest guy around. And the bossy lady with the clipboard? She might just be in for the surprise of her life. Stick around, friends, because Tom's story is just getting started, and I promise, it's going to be wild. Tom tried to be nice at first. He really did. When Karen came over with her rulebook, waving it like a weapon, Tom just smiled. Okay, Karen, he said. I'll see what I can do. But inside, his mind was racing. See, Tom wasn't the kind of guy to just give up. He was the kind of guy who got even. But not in the way you might think. Tom didn't want to yell or fight or be mean. Oh no. Tom had a better idea. A smarter idea. A secret idea. And that idea was growing bigger and bigger in his head, like a balloon getting ready to pop. Karen, though. She didn't stop. Not even a little bit. She was like a dog with a bone, and that bone was Tom's fountain. The day after she came to his door, a letter showed up in Tom's mailbox. It was from the HOA, and it was written in big, scary letters. Dear Mr. Jenkins, it said. Your fountain is against the rules. It is too loud. It is too messy. You must take it down by Friday, or you will pay a fine of $100. Tom read the letter and shook his head. A fine? For a tiny fountain that made a happy sound? It wasn't fair. Not fair at all. But Tom didn't get mad. He just folded the letter, put it in his pocket, and went back to his porch to sit and think. But Karen wasn't done. Oh no. A few days later, another letter came. This one was even meaner. Dear Mr. Jenkins, it said. You have not taken down your fountain. If you do not remove it by Monday, the fine will be $200. Tom read this letter, too, and this time, he chuckled. Yes, chuckled. Because Tom wasn't scared of Karen's letters. He wasn't scared of her fines. He was thinking, planning, dreaming. And every time Karen tried to scare him, it just made his plan grow bigger. Then came the emails. Every day, Tom's phone would ping with a new message from Karen. Take down the fountain, one email said. You are breaking the rules, said another. You are ruining our neighborhood, said a third. Tom would read the emails, smile, and delete them. Delete, delete, delete. Because Tom wasn't going to let Karen's mean words stop him. Nope. He was too busy, too smart, too strong. But no one else knew that. Not yet. Karen didn't stop with letters and emails, though. Oh no. She decided to make things even bigger. One evening, she called a big neighborhood meeting. She sent out flyers to every house on Maple Street, with big, bold words, emergency HOA meeting. Important. Tom got a flyer, too, and when he saw it, he just smiled. He knew what it was about. His fountain. His happy little fountain. So, Tom decided to go to the meeting. Not to fight. Not to argue. Just to watch. And maybe, to plan. The meeting was held in the neighborhood clubhouse, a big room with shiny floors and lots of chairs. All the neighbors were there, dressed in their fancy clothes, whispering to each other. Karen stood at the front, holding a big remote control, pointing to a giant screen. And on that screen? A picture of Tom's fountain. Big, bright, and clear. Karen clicked the remote, and the picture zoomed in, showing every little bubble, every splash of water. This, Karen said, her voice sharp like a knife, is why our property values are at risk. This, fountain. The neighbors gasped. They nodded. They whispered to each other, looking at Tom like he was some kind of troublemaker. Poor Tom, they thought. He doesn't belong here. He's not like us. He's not fancy. He's not perfect. Some of them even pointed at Tom, who was sitting quietly in the back of the room. One lady, Mrs. Thompson, whispered to her friend, "Why can't he just follow the rules?" And Mr. Brown, the man with the loud dog, said, "That fountain is so ugly. It makes our street look bad." Tom heard it all, but he didn't say a word. He just sat there, his arms crossed, a tiny smile on his face. Because while Karen was busy complaining, Tom was busy planning. Karen kept talking, her voice getting louder and louder. "This fountain is breaking rule number 12, section B," she said, waving her rule book. "It is too loud. It is too messy. It is not allowed. And Tom Jenkins refuses to take it down." She pointed at Tom, and all the neighbors turned to look at him. Some of them glared. Some of them shook their heads. But Tom? He just smiled. A small, quiet smile. Because Tom knew something they didn't. He wasn't going to take that fountain down. Not a chance. Instead, he was going to give the HOA something to really talk about. Something big. Something huge. Something that would make Karen's jaw drop to the floor. After the meeting, the neighbors started treating Tom even worse. When Tom walked down the street, they would cross to the other side, like he was a monster or something. When Tom waved hello, they would look away, pretending not to see him. One day, Mrs. Thompson even stopped Tom in the middle of the street and said, "Tom, why don't you just take down that fountain? It would make everything so much easier." Tom just smiled and said, "Oh, I'm working on something, Mrs. Thompson. Don't worry." But Mrs. Thompson didn't smile back. She just huffed and walked away, muttering, "Some people just don't fit in." But here's the thing, friends. Tom didn't care what they thought. He didn't care about their whispers or their glares or their mean words. Because every night, after the neighborhood went to sleep, Tom would sneak into his garage. The lights in all the other houses would be off, the street would be dark and quiet, but in Tom's garage, a little light would glow. And in that dim light, Tom would pull out his tools, his notebooks, his sketches. He would draw pictures, measure things, and write down ideas. Big ideas. Huge ideas. Ideas that would change everything. And every time Karen sent a letter, or an email, or held a meeting, it just made Tom work harder. It made his plan grow bigger. It made his smile grow wider. Here's a fun question for you, friends, put it in the comments below. What do you think Tom is planning? Is he going to build something even bigger than his fountain? Is he going to trick Karen somehow? Or is he going to do something so amazing that everyone will cheer for him? Let me know what you think, and stick around, because Tom's plan is going to be wild. Now, let's think about this for a minute, friends. Tom was being treated so unfairly, right? All he wanted was to keep his little fountain, to enjoy his happy little sound, to be himself. But Karen and the neighbors wouldn't let him. They judged him, they bossed him, they tried to scare him. But Tom? He didn't let it stop him. He didn't cry. He didn't yell. He didn't give up. Instead, he got smart. He got strong. He got ready. And that, friends, is why we're rooting for Tom. Because Tom is the underdog, the guy everyone thinks is weak, but who's really strong. The guy everyone thinks will lose, but who's going to win. And Karen? She's about to learn that lesson the hard way. Days turned into weeks, and the HOA got bolder. Karen, the bossy HOA president, wasn't happy just sending letters and emails anymore. Oh no. She started leaving nasty notes on Tom's door. One morning, Tom opened his front door to get the newspaper, and there it was, a big, bright yellow note taped right to the door. "Remove the fountain by Friday, or we'll fine you $500, it said in big, scary letters. Tom just looked at the note, shook his head, and smiled. A fine? For his happy little fountain? Nope, Tom wasn't scared. He just took the note, folded it up, and put it in his pocket. But Karen? She thought she was winning. She thought Tom would give up. Oh, how wrong she was. A few days later, Karen got even sneakier. She started taking pictures of Tom's fountain with her phone. Click, click, click. She took pictures from the front, from the side, even zoomed in on the bubbles. Then, she posted them on the neighborhood app, a place where all the neighbors could see. Under the pictures, she wrote, "This is what we're dealing with, people. This fountain is ruining our street." The neighbors saw the pictures, and oh boy, did they talk. "Look at that ugly thing," said Mrs. Thompson, the lady with the fancy car. "It's so loud," said Mr. Brown, the man with the noisy dog. "Tom should be ashamed," said another neighbor. And soon, the neighbors started to avoid Tom. When Tom walked down the street to get his mail, they'd cross to the other side, shaking their heads. When Tom waved hello, they'd look away, pretending not to see him. Poor Tom, they thought. He's done for. He can't win against Karen. But Tom? He didn't care. Not one bit. Because every night, when the street got dark and quiet, Tom was working harder. Harder than ever. See, Tom wasn't just some guy who liked fountains. Tom was an engineer. A really, really good one. That means he was super smart at building things, big things, amazing things, things that made people say, wow. And Tom had an idea so wild, so big, that it would change everything. But he kept it quiet. Oh, so quiet. He didn't tell a soul. Not the neighbors, not Karen, not even his best friend. When Karen banged on his door, yelling, "Take down that fountain, Tom," he'd just nod and say, "I'm working on it, Karen." And Karen would huff and puff, her face red like a tomato, and walk away, thinking she'd won. But here's the thing, friends, Tom wasn't working on taking the fountain down. Nope. He was working on something else. Something huge. Something amazing. Let's talk about what Tom was doing, but don't tell Karen. Every night, after the neighbors turned off their lights and went to bed, Tom would sneak out to his backyard. He'd grab a shovel, a big, shiny shovel, and start digging. Dig, dig, dig. He dug in the dirt, making big piles all around his yard. The piles got bigger and bigger, like little mountains of dirt. And Tom didn't stop there. He'd measure things, too, with a long tape measure, stretching it out across the yard. Measure, measure, measure. He'd write down numbers in his notebook, nodding to himself, smiling a little smile. What was he measuring? What was he digging? Well, friends, that's the secret. But here's a hint, it was big. Really, really big. And that's not all. Tom started planning, too. Every night, he'd sit in his garage, under a dim little light, with his notebook spread out on a table. He'd draw pictures of pipes, pictures of rocks, pictures of water going whoosh. He'd write down ideas, big ideas, wild ideas. And every time he drew something new, his smile got a little bigger. Because Tom wasn't just digging and measuring and drawing for fun. Oh no. He was building something. Something that started with a shovel, a pile of dirt, and a dream. But what was it? Well, friends, you'll have to wait and see. But I promise, it's going to be amazing. Now, here's where things get really fun. The neighbors started to notice strange things happening at Tom's house. One morning, a big truck pulled up to Tom's driveway. Honk, honk. The truck was huge, with big wheels and a loud engine. The neighbors peeked out their windows, curious. What was going on? The truck driver jumped out, and guess what he did? He started unloading a big pile of rocks. Big rocks, small rocks, shiny rocks, Rough rocks, all kinds of rocks. They piled up in Tom's driveway, higher and higher, until it looked like a mountain of stones. The neighbors whispered to each other. "What's Tom doing with all those rocks?" asked Mrs. Thompson, her nose pressed to her window. "He's up to something weird," said Mr. Brown, scratching his head. "And Karen?" "Oh, Karen saw it, too. She marched right over to Tom's house, her clipboard in hand, her eyes squinting. 'Tom Jenkins,' she yelled. 'What are all these rocks doing here? You'd better not be building something worse than that fountain.' Tom just smiled, calm as can be, and said, 'Oh, don't worry, Karen. I'm just fixing up my yard.' But Karen didn't believe him. Not one bit. And that's not all the neighbors noticed. A few days later, another truck came. Honk, honk. This time, it wasn't rocks. It was pipes, big, shiny pipes, the kind you might see carrying water. The pipes were long and silver, gleaming in the sun. The driver unloaded them, stacking them neatly next to the rocks. Clank, clank, clank. The neighbors were even more confused now. "Pipes," whispered Mrs. Thompson. "What does he need pipes for? He's definitely up to no good," said Mr. Brown, shaking his head. "And Karen?" She was furious. She wrote another note and taped it to Tom's door. "No pipes allowed," it said. "Stop this nonsense now." But Tom? He just smiled, took the note, and added it to his pile of Karen's notes. Because Tom wasn't stopping. Oh no. He was just getting started. Here's a fun question for you, friends, put it in the comments. What do you think Tom's building? Is it a bigger fountain? Is it a swimming pool? Or is it something even crazier, something no one would ever guess? Let me know what you think, and let's see who guesses right. Oh, and while you're at it, hit that like button if you're rooting for Tom, because I know I am. Now, let's think about this for a minute, friends. The neighbors thought Tom was done for, right? They thought Karen was winning, with her notes and her pictures and her meetings. But Tom? He wasn't done. Not even close. Every shovel of dirt, every measurement, every rock, every pipe, it was all part of his big, wild plan. And the best part? No one knew. Not Karen, not the neighbors, not anyone. Tom kept it all a secret, quiet as a mouse, smart as a fox. And every time Karen tried to stop him, it just made him work harder. Every time the neighbors whispered, it just made his plan grow bigger. And every time they thought, poor Tom, it just made his smile grow wider. Because Tom wasn't poor Tom. Tom was winning Tom. And soon, very soon, everyone would see it. Then came the big day. It started like any other morning on Maple Street. The sun was shining, bright and warm, making the grass sparkle with dew. The birds were singing, tweeting happy little songs in the trees. And Karen, the bossy HOA president, was on her daily walk, clipboard in hand, ready to find something, anything to complain about. She walked down the street, her shoes going clip, clop, her eyes squinting, looking for trouble. She checked Mrs. Thompson's flowers too tall. She checked Mr. Brown's mailbox too rusty. And then, she turned the corner to Tom's house. Oh, Karen couldn't wait to see Tom's fountain, to write another note, to yell at him again. But when she got to Tom's house, something happened. Something big. Something amazing. Karen stopped dead in her tracks. Her eyes went wide, like big, round saucers. Her mouth fell open, like she'd seen a ghost. Because there, in Tom's front yard, wasn't just a fountain anymore. Oh no. It was something else. Something huge. Something unbelievable. Let's set the scene, friends, so you can picture it. Tom's little house, the one everyone thought was boring, didn't look boring anymore. Nope. It looked like magic. Because Tom had built a waterfall. Not just any waterfall, a 20-foot tall, roaring, rushing, jaw-dropping waterfall. It towered over the yard, so tall it almost touched the sky, or at least it seemed that way. Water came crashing down, whoosh, splash, whoosh, into a sparkling pool below, shining in the sunlight like a million tiny diamonds. The pool was surrounded by rocks, big rocks, small rocks, shiny rocks, all the rocks Tom had gotten from that big truck. And there were plants, too, green and leafy, making it look like a jungle, a secret garden, a wonderland. It was beautiful. It was loud. It was perfect. And right in the middle of it all, Tom's little fountain, still bubbling away, happy as can be, now part of something so big, so bold, that it made the whole neighborhood look small. Karen just stood there, frozen, like a statue. Her clipboard slipped from her hand and fell to the ground plop, but she didn't even notice. Her eyes were glued to the waterfall, her mouth open, her brain trying to understand what she was seeing. A waterfall? A waterfall? In Tom's yard? How? When? Why? She couldn't speak. She couldn't move. She couldn't believe it. And while Karen stood there, frozen, the neighbors started to notice. Doors opened creak, creak, creak all up and down Maple Street. People came running out of their houses, their phones out, taking pictures. Click, click, click. Wow, they gasped. Amazing, they cheered. Look at that, said Mrs. Thompson, forgetting all about her fancy car. It's beautiful, said Mr. Brown, forgetting all about his noisy dog. Kids ran out, too, jumping up and down, clapping their hands, yelling, cool. 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 Everyone was smiling, laughing, pointing, taking pictures. Everyone except Karen. And Tom? Oh, Tom was ready. He stepped out of his front door, calm as can be, a big grin on his face. In his hand, he held a remote control, a little black box with buttons. He looked at the crowd, at the neighbors, at Karen, and said, "Oh, hi, Karen." His voice was calm, smooth, happy. "You wanted the fountain gone? Well, I decided to upgrade instead." Upgrade? What a word. The neighbors laughed, cheered, clapped. Karen's face turned red, then purple, then almost blue, like she was holding her breath. And then, Tom did something even better. He raised the remote control, pointed it at the waterfall, and pressed a button. Click. And with that click, the waterfall lit up bright, colorful lights shining through the water, red, blue, green, yellow, purple, all dancing together, making it look like magic. The water sparkled, the lights glowed, the whole yard turned into a wonderland. The neighbors gasped again, louder this time. Wow, they shouted. Amazing, they cheered. Kids squealed, adults clapped, and even the birds seemed to sing louder. It was the best thing Maple Street had ever seen. Here's the best part, friends, Tom had done his homework. See, Tom wasn't just smart, he was super smart. Before he started digging, before he got the rocks, before he got the pipes, Tom had checked every rule, every law, every tiny detail in the HOA rulebook. He read it all, page by page, word by word, making sure he was right. And guess what? That waterfall? It was 100% legal. That means it followed all the rules, all the laws, everything. Karen couldn't do a thing. Not a single thing. She couldn't fine him, she couldn't yell at him, she couldn't make him take it down. Tom had won, fair and square, and Karen had lost, big time. And the look on her face? Oh, friends, it was priceless. Her eyes were wide, her mouth was open, her clipboard was on the ground, and she looked like she wanted to disappear. But she couldn't. She had to stand there, in front of everyone, and watch Tom win. Now, let's think about this for a minute, friends. Remember how Karen treated Tom? Remember how she wrote nasty notes, sent mean emails, held big meetings, all to make Tom feel small? Remember how the neighbors avoided Tom, whispered about him, thought he was done for? Well, now, everything was different. Tom wasn't small anymore. Tom wasn't weak anymore. Tom was big, strong, amazing. And the neighbors? They weren't whispering mean things anymore. They were cheering, clapping, smiling. And Karen? She wasn't the bossy queen of Maple Street anymore. She was just a lady with a clipboard, standing there, looking silly, while Tom's waterfall roared and sparkled and won everyone's hearts. Here's a fun question for you, friends, put it in the comments. How do you think Karen felt when she saw the waterfall? Was she mad? Was she shocked? Was she jealous? Let me know what you think, and while you're at it, hit that like button if you're happy for Tom, because I know I am. Oh, and if you're loving the story, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what happens next. Now, friends, this was the big moment, the moment Tom's secret plan came out into the open, the moment everyone saw what he was really capable of. It was a surprise, a big, huge, amazing surprise, not just for Karen, but for all the neighbors, and for you, too, right? Tom took all that meanness, all that unfairness, and turned it into something beautiful, something legal, something unbeatable. And that, friends, is justice. That's what happens when you don't give up, when you use your brain, when you fight back in the smartest, best way. Tom didn't just win, he won big. And Karen? She didn't just lose, she lost big. And oh, friends, it feels so good to see it happen. After that big day, everything changed on Maple Street. Everything. Remember how mean Karen was to Tom? Remember how the neighbors avoided him, whispered about him, thought he was done for? Well, friends, all of that was over now. Tom's waterfall, the big, tall, roaring, sparkling waterfall, changed it all. It wasn't just a waterfall. It was a win. A big, huge, amazing win. And oh boy, did people notice. Let's talk about what happened next, because this is the part where Tom gets the respect he deserves, and Karen? Well, Karen gets what she deserves, too. First, let's talk about the neighborhood app. Remember how Karen used it to post mean pictures of Tom's fountain, saying bad things like, "This is what we're dealing with, people?" Well, after Tom's waterfall went up, that app blew up, but not with mean things. Nope. It blew up with pictures of the waterfall. Click, click, click. Neighbors posted pictures from the front, from the side, even at night with the colorful lights shining through the water. They wrote happy things, like, "Wow, look at Tom's waterfall, and this is the best thing on Maple Street, and Tom, you're amazing." People loved it so much, they couldn't stop talking about it. And guess what? It wasn't just the neighbors. People from all over town started hearing about the waterfall. Cars drove by, honking their horns, beep, beep, and stopping to take pictures. Kids begged their parents, "Please, can we stop and see the waterfall? Please." And parents said, okay, but just for a minute." But then they stayed longer, because it was just that cool. Now, let's talk about the HOA. Remember how the HOA, that group of rule makers, was always on Karen's side? Remember how they held big meetings to yell at Tom, to tell him to take down his fountain? Well, friends, after the waterfall went up, they had another big meeting. But this time, oh boy, this time was different. Very, very different. The meeting was in the clubhouse, with all the neighbors sitting in chairs, whispering to each other, excited. Karen stood at the front, holding her clipboard, trying to look bossy like always. She cleared her throat, cough, and said, "We need to talk about Tom's waterfall. It's against the rules." But before she could say another word, the neighbors started talking. "It's beautiful," said Mrs. Thompson, the lady with the fancy car. "It's good for property values," said Mr. Brown, the man with the noisy dog. "It's legal," said another neighbor, holding up a copy of the rule book. Legal. That means it followed all the rules, all the laws, everything. Karen's face turned red, then purple, then almost blue, like she was holding her breath again. She tried to argue, waving her clipboard, yelling, but no one listened. Not one person. Because this time, the neighbors weren't on Karen's side. They were on Tom's side. And here's the best part, friends. Something amazing happened at that meeting. One of the neighbors, a nice lady named Mrs. Garcia, stood up and said, "I think Tom should join the HOA board. He's smart, he's fair, and he makes our street better." The other neighbors cheered, clapped, shouted, "Yes. Yes. Yes." Karen tried to stop it, yelling, "No, no, no." But it was too late. They took a vote, raising their hands up, and guess what? Tom won. Tom, the guy they used to whisper about, the guy they used to avoid, was now part of the HOA. He wasn't just part of it, he was a leader. And Karen? Oh, Karen didn't like that one bit. But there was nothing she could do. Nothing at all. Now, let's talk about Karen. Remember how bossy she was? Remember how she marched around with her clipboard, writing mean notes, yelling at Tom, trying to scare him? Well, after that day, Karen didn't come around much anymore. Her clipboard stayed inside, gathering dust on a shelf. Her nasty notes stopped. No more yellow papers taped to Tom's door. And when Karen walked down the street, she didn't look so bossy anymore. She looked small, quiet, sad. The neighbors didn't listen to her anymore. They didn't follow her rules anymore. They didn't even wave hello anymore. Karen had lost, big time. And that, friends, is what happens when you're mean, when you're unfair, when you try to push people down. You don't win. You lose. And Karen lost everything: her power, her respect, her voice. All because she picked on the wrong guy. And Tom? Oh, Tom was winning, big time. Tom's waterfall became the talk of the town, not just on Maple Street, but everywhere. People started calling him Waterfall Tom, like he was a superhero or something. Kids would see him walking down the street and wave, yelling, "Hi, Waterfall Tom." Neighbors would smile, saying, "Good job, Tom, and we love your waterfall." And every evening, Tom would sit on his porch, just like he used to, but now it was different. Now, he wasn't alone. Now, he had the waterfall, roaring and crashing, sparkling in the lights. Now, he had neighbors who liked him, who respected him, who cheered for him. And now, he had a big smile on his face, a smile that said, "I did it. I won." And oh, friends, that smile was the best part of all. And here's a fun twist, friends: Tom didn't stop there. Nope. Tom wasn't just happy to win. He wanted to help, too. See, Tom was a nice guy, a kind guy, a smart guy. So, he started helping other neighbors with their yards. One day, he helped Mrs. Thompson add a little fountain to her garden, a tiny one that bubbled just like his old one. "Oh, Tom, it's perfect," she said, clapping her hands. Another day, he helped Mr. Brown fix up his garden, planting flowers and trimming bushes. "Thanks, Tom," said Mr. Brown, smiling for the first time in forever. And then, the best part of all, Tom built a tiny waterfall for the neighborhood park, a little one just for the kids to splash in. The kids loved it, running around, laughing, yelling, "Waterfall Tom! Waterfall Tom!" The neighborhood that once judged him, that once avoided him, that once whispered about him. Now they loved him. Now they cheered for him. Now they respected him. And all because he didn't give up. He got even, in the best way possible. Here's a fun question for you, friends. Put it in the comments: what would you do if you were Tom, after winning like that? Would you help your neighbors, like Tom did? Would you build more waterfalls? Or would you just sit back and enjoy your win? Let me know what you think, and while you're at it, hit that like button if you're happy for Tom, because I know I am. Oh, and if you're loving this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss more stories like this. Now, let's think about this for a minute, friends. This is the part where everything feels good, right? Tom worked hard, he planned smart, he built something amazing, and now, he's the hero. Karen was mean, she was unfair, she tried to stop him, and now, she's the loser. This is justice, friends. This is what happens when you don't give up, when you use your brain, when you fight back in the best way. Tom earned respect, not just from the neighbors, but from all of us, too. And Karen? She faced consequences, not just losing her power, but losing her voice, her place, her everything. And that, friends, is why the story feels so good, so right, so complete. Because in the end, the good guy wins, the bad guy loses, and everyone learns a lesson. And oh, friends, isn't that the best feeling of all? So, friends, what do we learn from Tom's story? Wow, what a story, right? Let's sit back for a minute and think about it, because the story isn't just about a guy and a waterfall. Nope. It's about so much more. It's about you, me, all of us, and what we can do when someone tries to stop us, when someone tries to push us down, when someone says, "No, you can't." Tom's story is full of lessons, big lessons, important lessons, and I want to share them with you, friends, so you can feel strong, brave, and ready for anything. So, let's talk about it, step by step, and see what we can learn, okay? First, let's think about Tom. Remember how everyone saw him at the start? They thought he was just an ordinary guy, a quiet guy, a boring guy. They saw his little house, his old car, his tiny fountain, and they thought, poor Tom. He's not special. He's not strong. He's not like us. And Karen, the bossy HOA president, thought that, too. She thought Tom was weak, easy to boss around, easy to scare. But here's the first big lesson, friends, sometimes, the people who try to push you down are the ones who don't see what you're really capable of. That means they don't see your strength, your smarts, your heart. They look at you and see only what's on the outside, not what's on the inside. But you know what's on the inside. You know you're strong, you know you're smart, you know you're special. And Tom? He knew it, too. He knew he wasn't just an ordinary guy. He was an engineer, a dreamer, a doer. And when Karen tried to push him down, he didn't stay down. Nope. He got up, and he got to work. Now, let's think about how Tom fought back. Remember how mean Karen was? She wrote nasty notes, sent mean emails, held big meetings, all to make Tom feel small, to make him give up, to make him take down his fountain. And if Tom was like most people, maybe he would have gotten mad, yelled, argued, or even cried. But Tom didn't do any of that. Nope. Tom stayed calm, Tom stayed quiet, Tom stayed smart. And here's the second big lesson, friends, sometimes, the best way to fight back isn't with anger, but with action. Big, bold, beautiful action. That means instead of yelling, you do. Instead of crying, you build. Instead of giving up, you dream. Tom didn't waste his time arguing with Karen. He didn't waste his energy being mad. He used his energy to plan, to dig, to measure, to build. And what did he build? A waterfall, a big, tall, roaring, sparkling waterfall that showed everyone, I'm not small. I'm not weak. I'm amazing. And friends, you can do that, too. When someone says, no, you can't, you can say, yes, I can, not with words, but with actions, big actions, amazing actions. Now, let's think about what happened in the end. Remember how Tom won? His waterfall was legal, it was beautiful, it was unbeatable. And Karen? She lost, big time. She lost her power, her respect, her voice. The neighbors didn't listen to her anymore. They listened to Tom, they cheered for Tom, they loved Tom. And here's the third big lesson, friends, when you don't give up, when you use your brain, when you fight back in the best way, you win. And not just a little win, a big win, a huge win, a win that makes everyone say, wow. Tom didn't just keep his fountain. He made it better, bigger, bolder. He didn't just beat Karen. He changed the whole neighborhood. He didn't just win respect. He won love. And friends, that's what happens when you keep going, when you keep dreaming, when you keep doing. You don't just win, you shine. So, friends, here's what I want you to remember, the big lesson from Tom's story. Next time someone tells you no, remember Tom. Next time someone says, you can't, remember Tom. Next time someone tries to push you down, remember Tom. Dig deeper, like Tom did with his shovel. Build bigger, like Tom did with his waterfall. And let the world see what you're made of, like Tom did with his lights and his water and his smile. Because you, friends, are strong. You are smart. You are special. And no one, no bossy Karen, no mean neighbor, no one can stop you when you decide to shine. So, shine, friends, shine bright, shine big, shine bold, just like Tom. Now, let's think about you, friends. Yes, you. I want you to imagine something. Imagine you're Tom. Imagine you've got something you love, something special, like Tom's fountain. Maybe it's a drawing you made, a song you wrote, a game you invented. And imagine someone bossy, someone mean, comes along and says, no, you can't have that. Take it down. Stop it. Give up. What would you do? Would you give up, like Karen wanted Tom to? Or would you fight back, like Tom did, with action, with smarts, with dreams? I think you'd fight back, friends, because I think you're strong, just like Tom. I think you're smart, just like Tom. I think you're amazing, just like Tom. And I think, if you were Tom, you'd build something big, something bold, something beautiful, just to show the world, I can, I will, I did. Here's a fun question for you, friends, put it in the comments below. What would you build to get even in the best way possible? Would you build a waterfall, like Tom? Would you build a rocket, a castle, a giant slide? Or would you build something totally new, something no one has ever seen before? Let me know what you think, because I can't wait to read your ideas. Oh, and while you're at it, hit that like button if you loved the story, because I know I did. And if you want to share the story with a friend, go ahead and do it, share it, spread it, tell the world about Tom and his waterfall. And if you want more stories like this, stories about people who turn no into wow, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single tale. Because friends, there are so many stories out there, stories of underdogs, stories of winners, stories of dreamers, and I can't wait to tell them all to you. Now, let's end with one last thought, friends, one last big, bright, shining thought. Tom's story isn't just a story. It's a lesson, a gift, a spark. It's a spark that can light a fire inside you, a fire that says, I can do anything. I can be anything. I can shine. So, friends, take that spark, hold it tight, and let it grow. Let it grow into action, into dreams, into wins. And remember, always remember, you are stronger than you think, smarter than you know, and more amazing than anyone can see. Just like Tom. So, go out there, friends, dig deeper, build bigger, and let the world see what you're made of. See you next time, friends, and until then, shine, shine, shine.